Hi, student organization advisors. We hope you're having a great semester so far. My name is Dee Dee Williams-Van, and I'm the Director of TCU Student Organizations Learning and Development. In my role, I have the opportunity to work with our great student leaders and amazing advisors just like you. I've been at TCU for 16 years now in a variety of roles focused on leadership development. I'm passionate about helping to support our students in their journey of leadership, as well as assisting you to ensure our student organizations are successful in their operations. We greatly appreciate all the hard work and energy that you put into your role as an advisor.
Hi everyone, I'm Sierra Jackson, Leadership Program. I'm also a graduate assistant working with student organizations. For my undergrad, I attended Texas A&M and was an involved student leader in organizations. I'm excited to work with you this year to support you in your efforts. Normally, we would have these advisor trainings in person and you would be able to meet other advisors to connect, share best practices, and ask questions. Instead, we are requesting that you watch this video on your own when it fits with your schedule. After watching this video, you are more than welcome to attend one of our handful of Zoom and in-person Q&A sessions we have set up, or you can send us an email with questions.
Some of you have been advisors for several years now, so if that's the case and you do not have any questions after this training, you do not need to attend a Q&A session. If you're a new advisor in the last year or have not served as an advisor in several years, you will need to attend a Q&A session. This training is one of the mandatory requirements for student organizations at TCU. So in order to receive credit for attending, you will need to fill out the pretest prior to watching this video, which should have already occurred prior to you clicking on this training. Watch this video. And then after watching this video, you will indicate which Q&A session you'd like to attend if you're a new advisor or if you have any questions. So make sure to have your calendars ready. And then you'll fill out the post-test after watching the video, which will also be located on TCU Engage. As we know you are all busy balancing your main role at TCU and other priorities, we hope this way of providing the training helps you to balance your time this semester. Before we get too far into the training, we want to say thank you. Thank you for volunteering your time to provide support and guidance to our students' pursuits and their organizations. I know that we're not able to pay you for your time and energy, even though we wish we could. But just know that you are appreciated and a necessary component of the success of our TCU student organizations.
In today's training, we will cover quite a few things. Tips for you and your role that will lead to success, as well as what is your role and what is the president's role. Types of risk inherent to student organizations, your responsibility when it comes to those risks and how you can mitigate that. Resources at TCU for you and our student leaders. TCU's policies and procedures when it comes to a variety of different items such as finances, swag for your orgs, media guidelines, and how to reserve space on campus. And we'll also discuss TCU Engage and its many ways to help support student organization operations, as well as how our office can best provide you with opportunities and support.
Before we get started with the training, we want to reiterate the belonging hypothesis from Baumeister and Leary as it greatly pertains to our student organizations. Human beings have a pervasive drive to form and maintain at least a minimum quantity of lasting, positive, and significant interpersonal relationships. Given COVID, this is especially true that our students are craving that sense of belonging and community at TCU. The role of an advisor seems very upfront to answer questions from student organization leaders and to support them in their roles and initiatives of the organization. But in addition to that, there may potentially be other roles that you might serve depending on the type of organization. In some cases, you may be a listener, a mentor, a motivator, which are all very intuitive to the advisor role. In some cases, you may be the one constant while the student leaders come in, so that you may have to serve as the historian in order to let them know what has happened in the past. For example, what's worked well, what has been roadblocks, how to do things maybe potentially differently. You may need to be a policy interpreter or a risk manager for TCU when there's confusion on how to proceed on something, or if you know something there that your student organization leaders are trying to plan that may not be in line with TCU policies. We all know that when a group of people get together, everyone might have different thoughts, opinions, or communication styles. So you may also have to sometimes serve as a conflict mediator between the leadership board. Additionally, as our orgs have other things that they do, such as work with finances and marketing pieces, you could also serve as a financial advisor or even a copy editor in some cases. Additionally, depending on your skill sets of your student leaders, this may vary from year to year in the amount of support that they may need from you.
There are a lot of components that go into running student organizations, including but not limited to the items on the screen. Events, like reserving spaces and marketing those events, leadership development, finances/banking, dealing with outside vendors, licensing and speakers, as well as risk management. With that in mind, the student leaders will need your advisement. As there are varying levels of involvement from our advisors on campus, we wanted to reiterate what the student president's role is and what they should be doing versus what you should be doing. The president should be the one to complete the annual re-registration for TCU, coordinate meetings and events for the organization, serve as the contact and respond for the organization, communicate with you and the members, provide the vision for the organization, get to know members so that they can think about how to empower them to lead in the future. And your president will have their finger on the pulse of the members and their morale, so they will know when to focus more on the team and community building.
There are several keys to being a successful student organization at TCU, and we wanted to make sure you were aware of those. TCU Engage is our online involvement platform, and all registered in good standing organizations have the opportunity to manage their organization's operations through it. For that reason, it is important for your student leaders to update their TCU Engage page every semester, and then also be on it frequently. Some organizations use a variety of different platforms to manage their orgs. Maybe that's Google Docs, spreadsheets that are saved on their own drives, social media, etc. We're not saying not to use those, but chances are there are things on Engage that your organization leaders did not know was even there as a functionality or a resource. So it's worth looking into. Also, having your organization's documents on Engage helps when officers transition to ensure that all of those items are properly transferred. We'll discuss Engage in a little bit more detail later. In order to maintain the minimum number of students needed to be in good standing, the organization needs at least 10 students. We encourage our students to bring in different class years or majors to help with retention and the future of the organization, depending on what the membership requirements are. We also recommend that the students go beyond just their friend groups, their majors, and those that they may already know to market the organization. As connectivity and consistency is key for student organizations, students want to see each other and build community. For that reason, it is important to have at least one meeting or event each month at a minimum, whether that's over Zoom or another platform or in person. Keep in mind that when the student organizations have meetings or events, they do have to put those into TCU Engage, and we'll cover that in a little bit more detail later as well. Money is always a need for student organizations, and we will discuss funding options later on in this training. Lastly, and most importantly, the organization's human capital will help to make it successful. You as the advisor are an integral piece of that team. We want to make sure that the leaders are communicating with you and have at least a few meetings with you each semester.
There are several ways for your student leaders and you to maintain connection. The student leaders obviously manage their orgs on Engage, but we also created a president's page where we have a variety of resources posted for them. After this training, you'll be put into an advisor's page as well if you already aren't on there. We also have resources on our student organization's website. Additionally, we have other ways for presidents to maintain connection, a GroupMe for all presidents, and opportunities for presidents, student leaders, and you to receive training and consultations on your organizations. After attending this training, we expect that you will understand the governing policy of Texas State Bill 1138 and its organizational requirements for TCU, be able to identify types of risk associated with organizational participation and how to mitigate those risks, and be aware of campus and community resources to assist you.
Okay, let's talk about State Bill 1138. It mandates that all higher education entities provide risk management education for its members, leaders, and advisors. As we mentioned earlier, the president of the student organizations you work with were already required to go through this training earlier this semester. Normally, when we meet in person, we will ask you to share what you think are some types of risk related to student organizations. As we're not in person, take a second to think about this and consider this question. of what could possibly be considered risk within organizations. Risk can occur in a variety of different ways within organizations. What we will focus on today are the following types: alcohol and drug, hazing, discrimination, sexual harassment and assault, firearm and safety issues, student travel, and behavior on and off campus.
When it comes to alcohol, TCU addresses this within its code of conduct and alcohol policy and can lead to the following consequences: monetary fines, removal from a dorm or organization, and disciplinary action or suspension from TCU. The main things for you to consider is that students cannot purchase alcohol with organization funds, purchase, serve, or sell alcohol to minors, or have alcohol at your organization meetings or events, or participate in drinking games. If your organization is a part of a national or local organization, you may also want to check their policies. Just remember, alcohol has no place within your organization's operations. When it comes to drugs, TCU also addresses that within its code of conduct. When we think of drugs, we tend to think of just illegal drugs or controlled substances, but I do want you to also consider over-the-counter medicine. Student leaders or members should not provide anyone else in the organization medicine. Again, keep in mind, drugs in your organization should not mix.
Next, we're going to cover hazing. So I want you to consider this question: what is hazing and what are some examples of it? According to Texas Senate Bill 24, hazing is anything that endangers the mental or physical health or safety of a student in order to be selected for, initiated into, maintain membership, or hold a leadership position within an organization. If you are aware of hazing going on at TCU, it is your responsibility to report it to our hazing hotline, 817-257-HAZE or 4293. Every student organization at TCU has agreed to TCU's anti-hazing statement as it is included in each of its constitutions. Hazing can come in a lot of different forms. It can include physical brutality, such as hitting, paddling, and branding, physical activity, such as sleep deprivation, exposure to the elements, confinement, calisthenics, or any other activity that places the student at unreasonable risk or harm. It also includes any activity that forces or encourages the consumption of food, liquid, alcohol, drugs, or any other substance. Additionally, it can be any activity where a student can experience extreme stress, shame, humiliation, or something that adversely impacts a student from entering, remaining in, or leaving an organization. It is important to remember that even if a student consents to hazing, that is not allowed. There should not be any hazing at TCU or within student organizations. When we talk to your presidents, we ask them to consider this: there is a difference between intent and perception. Even if one of the organization's activities has the intent of team building or tradition making, it may not be perceived that way from all members. So please consider all of your activities and processes to see if anything you are currently doing or plan to do could be perceived as hazing. If you have any questions, feel free to contact our office. In addition to the fact that we would never want any of our students to feel as if their physical or mental health is endangered, there are also large fines and potential jail time if hazing occurs. Again, hazing is not allowed at TCU. TCU values an inclusive community. As such, TCU prohibits discrimination and harassment on the basis of any identities protected by law, and those include age, race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, gender expression, national origin, ethnic origin, disability, genetic information, covered veteran status, and any other basis protected by law. Within your constitutions, you have all agreed to abide by TCU's non-discriminatory clause in your selection of students for your organization, as well as your membership. You should always consider all of your organization's practices to think about whether anything you do could be considered discrimination. If you are aware of discrimination or harassment, you should contact the Office of Institutional Equity at 817-257-8228 or through their website. Sexual harassment and misconduct includes quite a few things, and our TCU student leaders were required to take a training on this when they entered into TCU, and we know that you also took one through HR. So we'll not go into a lot of detail about defining these items, but they do include intimate partner violence, dating and domestic, sexual and gender-based harassment, sexual assault, sexual exploitation, and stalking. The reason this is an element of risk for you and your student leaders to consider is that because both of you as an advisor and your student organization leader are in a position of trust and respect, you might have a student of your organization divulge something to you. We want to ensure you have the information to share with them. And we have a variety of resources on TCU's campus, such as TCU Police, the Title IX office, Campus Life, or the Dean of Students office, Counseling and Health Center, Counseling Hotline, and the Religious and Spiritual Life office. There are also a whole host of off-campus resources too, such as the Fort Worth Police, local hospitals, the Women's Center, Safe Haven, and so on. We will send a copy of those offices' contact information and also save that on the Advisor Engage page.
Fire safety is important at TCU. How this applies to student organizations is that when our organizations have an in-person meetings, there's a collected group of students together, and you need to ensure that no one sets a fire, everyone evacuates when a fire alarm goes off, no one sets off a false fire alarm, and no one misuses fire safety equipment. As TCU is a private institution, we had the opportunity to decide on whether or not concealed handguns and other weapons were allowed on campus. TCU does not allow the possession, storage, or use of firearms, openly carried or concealed, or other weapons on our property, at athletic events, in our buildings, or on our grounds, or in vehicles. Please note some of those examples of weapons include guns, knives, bombs, martial arts devices, etc. Possession of these may result in expulsion. We asked our TCU Police Department to provide some crime prevention tips for organizations, and here's what they said. To report an emergency, call TCU Police at extension 7777 or utilize your Frog Shield app to alert police. You should all download this app if you have not done so already. Dial 911 from any of the blue light phones on campus. If you are on campus, TCU Police will be here quicker than calling 911, so just keep that in mind. As sometimes organization meetings are held later in the evening, students should use a buddy system when walking to their cars or dorms. Call Froggy 50 for an escort and walk along lighted pathways. Also, they should alarm their vehicles. We always recommend if anyone sees something, they should say something.
When it comes to travel, we know that some of your organizations have off-campus experiences such as site visits, service opportunities, practices, competitions, conferences, etc. There are additional forms for your students to fill out when it comes to travel or off-campus activities if any of the following are true. If it includes an overnight stay, if it is outside of the city limits of Fort Worth, or if the travel or off-campus experience is being funded by TCU at all. Depending on what type of organization you are, academic, sport club, or religious and spiritual life, you may have additional travel policies. If you have questions about this, please reach out to us at least a few weeks prior to the event. At TCU, the Code of Conduct is our overarching governing policy, and then comes our student organization handbook. We also want you to know that if your organization is operating within an academic department, sport club, fraternity and sorority life organization, or religious organization, you need to make sure to familiarize yourself with their policies as well. Additionally, if your organization is a part of a national or a local organization, please review their policies. If the national or local policies are ever in a disagreement with TCU's policies will be the ones that you'll need to follow as you're operating on our campus. As we know it's important to have money to operate your organization, we wanted to share with you some important things to consider and resources. The sources of income as an organization that you might have include dues, fundraising, and donations. When it comes to the management of your funds, that is at the discretion of your organization. Organizations can either create an off-campus bank account or have a departmental account set up through the department the organization is associated with, if that's an option. It is a best practice to have 2 signatures on all expenditures, or to at least be aware of expenditures, and to also keep track of your expenses in a spreadsheet in your records. We do not recommend the use of PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App, as there could be security issues. And then also organization funds should be separate from personal funds, as you have a fiduciary and legal responsibility to ensure funds are handled correctly. All registered in good standing organizations can apply for funding through Student Government Association, or SGA. Organizations can apply every semester, but will need to apply, make an appointment for a presentation to the Finance Committee, and then present to them. Our office is more than happy to assist with questions around that. Also, there's an additional opportunity to apply for funds through Frog funding. It is new as of last year, and if your organization has a specific funding need, this would be a great opportunity. Each month, a committee of TCU staff chooses a handful of organizations or departments to feature, and it is TCU's crowdfunding app. This process is more time-consuming of an application than the one with SGA, so just keep that in mind.
Since TCU's brand is strong, whether it is our carefully selected purple carpets or emblems throughout campus, we want to protect our brand and ensure it is in line with the approved ways to use our logos and colors. We also know our students want to advertise their orgs through cool swag, and we want to help with that. They do not need to find a vendor or determine what the design needs to look like beyond their idea. For that reason, not just any company can create TCU swag. For student organizations at TCU, they are required to use an approved vendor, and it actually helps our students as they do not have to go and look for one. Also, they know the approved requirements of TCU's logo and colors to use, so that takes out the guesswork, and they want to help our students. The approved vendor list is located on brand.tcu.edu. Here are some tips for swag for your leaders. Be upfront about your budget with vendors. The approved vendors on our list will work with you to keep your costs down. Make sure you're being planful and give enough time for design, order, and receipt of your items, and get creative and have fun. TCU wants to protect students from having to make decisions regarding media, and we also have some strict policies in place to do so. If there is an event that is open to the public, your students need to let our office know, as the event or a speaker may garner attention from local media. Approval must be obtained at least 2 weeks prior for media to be on campus. Media must be escorted at all times, and they can only gather footage, which include images, videos, and sound recordings, at the location of the event, not anywhere else on campus. For events only open to TCU, outside media cannot attend. Media can only set up a public sidewalk to capture B-roll footage. Let us know if you have questions about outside media.
To reserve space at TCU, we let your student leaders know that we have a variety of different reservation systems, and the capacity of how many people can be in each room may have been reduced since COVID. But that's just something to keep in mind as they're looking for what space to use on campus, because it's at a premium. To book space in the blue KFCB, the Commons, or the Founders statue, students will go to the union.tcu.edu website. To book space in classrooms or academic buildings, students will go to the registrar's website. To book space in the rec center, they'll go to that website as well. Safety is still a factor this semester, so when hosting an in-person event, the following policies have to be followed. They need to wear face coverings over the mouth and nose, and if anyone attending does not feel well, we recommend that they just stay home. As we discussed earlier, it is important for the organization TCU Engage pages to be utilized. And to do that, we want to ensure that you know about the resources that it provides, as there's quite a few things. We won't go into a great amount of detail or show you those tools today, but we encourage you to join us for an Engage training sometime in the future to learn more. It is important for rosters to be updated with the current students in the organization, removing any students who've graduated or are no longer at TCU in the organization. It is also required to create an event for everything being done as an organization, whether that's virtual or in person, or if that's a meeting, event, practice, competition, worship, whatever it is that our students are doing within their organization needs to be, an event needs to be created for. We provided a detailed version of how to create an event, and we've sent that to your presidents. Forms can be created for a variety of things, such as applications, surveys, etc. Documents can be saved that could be useful for the good of your group, and you can also limit access to those files if you only want your exec members to be able to see that. There's also a photo gallery option, which is a great place for you to upload organization photos or videos so that they're not only housed on student phones or social media, but that you actually have a historical record of those to use in the future.